Hello and welcome to i-nastava. This is English language lesson for the third grade of high school. Today's topic is International Tolerance Day. My name is Rejhana Nuhanović Tadijan and I will be your teacher for this lesson. Today you're going to summarize a pie chart and compose a spoken word poem. Before we start, please prepare your notebooks, a pen or pencil, internet access and QR code reader. We'll start this lesson with an optical illusion. I'd like you to take a look at this image carefully. What do you see? A lot of black squares, right? Now look at it more carefully. When you pay attention to these black squares, do you see anything else? Are there any gray spots on the intersections of the white lines? And they disappear when you look directly at them. This is called the Hermann grid. Are these gray spots really there? This is an example of how we sometimes see things that are not really there. Have you ever had, for example, a wrong first impression of someone who had a different background or came from another culture? Or has anyone from a different background or another culture ever had the wrong first impression of you? Why do you think that is? Think about it. Do people judge a lot? And why do you think that is? We mark International Tolerance Day on the 16th of November. And what is actually tolerance? According to UNESCO's 1995 Declaration of Principles on Tolerance, it is respect, acceptance, and appreciation of the rich diversity of our world's cultures, our forms of expression, and ways of being human. As you've just heard, it's all about acceptance and embracing diversity. However, a lot of people are often faced with situations where they are judged or treated differently just because they are not the same as others. Can you list some of the most frequent ways people can be discriminated against? I'd like you to pause this video and make a list, and then we will compare. And here are some categories: marital status, disability, their race, education, nationality, age, religion, parenthood, gender, sexual orientation, financial status, or color. And why do you think that is? At the heart of all forms of discrimination is basically prejudice based on concepts of identity and the need to identify with a certain group. This can lead to division, to hatred, and even dehumanization of other people because they have a different identity. There is also fear of the unknown and ignorance. Now I'd like you to pause the video again and try to find examples of discrimination you have witnessed or heard of, starting from your immediate surroundings, your school, and spreading to examples in your neighborhood, your town or city, your region, country, and finally in the world. Now imagine what the world would look like if it were only 100 people. How many of them do you think would be male and how many female? How many would speak English? I'd like you to pause this lesson and write down your predictions on these topics. And here is the actual chart. This is how the world would look like as 100 people. If you type the link bit.ly 100 people EJ or scan this code, you can see this chart better. It is divided into 14 key topics. Please pause the video and compare with your predictions. Do you find anything to be surprising? And what is that? And what can you learn from this chart, if anything? I'd like you to pause this lesson and try to name at least 3 lessons it teaches you. Here are some ideas. First of all, you should appreciate diversity because it would be boring. We couldn't explore other cultures, learn languages, or enjoy different adventures because everybody would be the same, look the same, or speak the same language. Then it should make you realize exactly how grateful you should be because you are so fortunate, unlike some other people. And you shouldn't take that for granted. And most importantly, you can see how much work there still is to be done in the world and all the things we can get involved in to help others where we can, to make a difference in our lives and in the lives of others. And now I'd like you to summarize that chart. You should apply it to the whole world and write an analysis in the form of a report of the data from the chart. I will give you some advice or ideas about how to do that. First, pay attention to numbers. You can turn them into percentages or use actual phrases. Here is the list of percentages and corresponding words you can use. A half, a quarter, 3/4, a third, 2/3, or a fifth. With these numbers, you can also use words such as almost, about, nearly, just under, over, more than, less than, or the most common. You can use them to describe that number more accurately. For example, you can say almost 2/3 of the population are Catholic, or less than 10% have no electricity. You can also use passives to make your language more varied and less repetitive. For example, instead of saying people speak English, you can say English is spoken. You should also make your text flow naturally. It means you should connect sentences and parts of sentences using phrases such as in contrast, whereas, compared with, or however. Let's give it a try with this sample chart. This one is about religious affiliation in England. Please pause this lesson and examine this chart carefully. If you believe you have forgotten something, you can come back to it later. Now, try to complete these sentences with one of the given words. All these sentences are about that pie chart you have just seen. Catholic is the most common religion in England. Next sentence. Almost 60% are Catholic. Just over a quarter are non-religious. More than 4% are Muslim, whereas just over 1% are Hindu. Nearly 10% of the population belong to other religious affiliations. I believe you are ready to summarize the data from your chart. Please make sure you have covered all the points from the chart, you have used accurate language to describe the figures, you have applied varied language structures, and you have compared and contrasted figures. And Here is a checklist to help you with that. You'll now watch a short video called The Mosque Across the Street. Please type in the link bit.ly mosque1 or scan the code. And while watching, try to find answers to these 3 questions. Who were the 2 groups of people on opposite sides of the street? What was the problem? And what happened in the end? When you finish watching, please come back to the lesson to compare. The 2 groups were Catholic and Islamic. The problem was that the Memphis Islamic Center was supposed to be built across the street from Heartsong Church. And in the end, they became friends. Now watch it for the second time, but this time pay more attention to details and try to answer the following questions. What were the main reasons, according to the pastor, for his attitude in the beginning? Why did they decide to build the Islamic Center? Why did they spend a whole month at Heartsong Church? What did they do together? And what did they learn? The main reasons were ignorance and fear. They needed a place to play, pray, socialize, and to have a sense of community. They spent the whole month there because their hall wasn't ready and they didn't get all the permits in time. They did coat drives, food drives, they gave blood, they had Thanksgiving dinner and a spring picnic. And they learned that their world can get bigger, that they are better people now, and they appreciate that friendship. And after watching this inspirational video, what do you think we could personally do to help others, to weaken the fears, to make a difference? Please think of one situation in your environment where you can help. Pause this lesson and note down your ideas. What can you personally do? Who else could get involved? And how would that help that person or people? And how would you benefit? Do you know what spoken word poem or slam poetry is? Have you ever heard one being performed? It is actually a poem written with the intent to be performed, not just read like regular poetry. We will see an example, a spoken word poem called History Will Be Repeated by Trey Carlisle. It is a part of My Hero project, and you can find everything about it when you follow this link, myhero.com, or scan the code. You can find a lot of inspirational stories written by teenagers just like you about their heroes, and you can even actively participate by sending your own stories and be inspired or inspire others to make a positive change in the world. While listening to him perform his poem, please find answers to 2 questions. What is the poem about? And what does he want us to do? Let's hear it.
History will be repeated unless we learn and work to defeat it. So I'm dedicating my life to treat others the way I want to be treated. History will be repeated unless we learn and work to defeat it. So I'm going to use my gifts to make the world better because I believe the youth are needed. The greatest superheroes are not the ones we read about in comic books. They're the ones that live in you. Just take a look. Not only are we the future generation, we can use our gifts to be a suture for the nation. The world is plagued with discrimination. gun violence, human trafficking, and dehumanization. But we can end these issues we are facing by believing in ourselves and getting an education. The youth will be instrumental. You can make the world a better place with your unique potential, your dreams, your talents, your desires. Your unique personality, that's your superpower. And you will change the world with your unique story that begins with your name and it ends in victory. So all your challenges, there's nothing to be afraid of. The stuff of legend is what you're made of. History will be repeated unless we learn and work to defeat it. So I'm dedicating my life to treat others the way I want to be treated. History will be repeated unless we learn and work to defeat it. So I'm going to use my gifts to make the world better because I believe the youth are needed.
So this poem is about the power of each individual and their personal engagement for a better world. He wants us to take action, to use our powers to change, to do our part in changing the world, to use education as a tool, and our unique gifts and talents. He invites everybody, not just to be bystanders, but to do something about the injustice and intolerance we see in the world. Now pause the lesson and follow this link, History Slam, to hear this poem again, and this time try to focus on characteristic features of spoken word poetry. What is unique about it? What is different? What do you notice? Listen and then we'll check to see some recommendations for creating this type of poem. As we have already mentioned, it is written with the intention of being performed. Your task will be to write a poem similar to this one. And what do you need to consider? The first thing you notice is that he has a strong opinion about that. So you need to be passionate about the topic you choose. It can cover a range of different topics, from a broken heart, your fears, or family relationships, to world problems. Anything that you have strong feelings about. Then there is the gateway line. It is the first line to sum up the main topic. In this case, it is history will be repeated. You need to let the audience know what you are going to be talking about and then reinforce, support, and expand that initial idea. You should also focus on sensory details of the scene and write vividly so that the audience can see, hear, or feel what you are talking about. Just like he does, you should repeat certain lines or words to emphasize an image or idea for your audience. Your poem should end with a strong image that will stay with your audience for a while and make them think. It can be a thought of hope or call for an action. What have they learned? What is the message of your poem? Your words don't need to rhyme, but you should create some kind of rhythm to stress your words and ideas. You can also look for experienced spoken word artists online and see how they perform. In that way, you'll get a better feeling of rhythm or structure of that poem. When you write and perform your poem, make sure you have followed the recommendations for writing, you have watched others perform, and you have recorded yourselves. You can use Flipgrid or smartphone. And as the last task for today, I'd like you to write down 3 things you can do now, 2 things you believe you need more practice in, and 1 thing you are still confused about. And this is the end of today's lesson. Until some other time, bye-bye.